We've been discussing a lot of things when it comes to relationships over the past number of weeks. So I did promise one class on intimacy, physical intimacy, and that's tonight. But we're going to do it through one specific certain venue and idea, and that is a kiss. And we'll use a kiss as the basic physical connection, and then you can extrapolate any way you want to every other area of physical intimacy, which I, as a rabbi, do not understand here on a public forum, but you all have very good imaginations, maybe too good in most of your cases, but let's just start with... so let's talk a little bit. So we're going to focus on the power of a kiss, which actually is a lot written in Judaism about this, funnily enough. So let's have a look. First of all, I'm going to begin with a book which I did not read, but the TED video which I did by a woman called Cheryl Kirschenbaum. Yes, she's Jewish. And she wrote a book called The Science of Kissing. And CNN.com did a piece on it, as well as it being a TED video, as I said. And let's see what she has to say a little bit. Let's build this up a little bit, and let's try to work this out together if we can. And she says, beneath the surface, a kiss serves as the ultimate litmus test for a relationship. It can urge us to pursue a deeper connection with someone special, or act as a warning to back off when something doesn't feel quite right. Science is finally beginning to unravel the mystery of how this happens. While we don't often think of them this way, human lips are the body's most exposed erogenous zone, packed with sensitive nerve endings. As everyone saw that very unusual picture of the homunculus, the cortical homunculus, basically it's part of the brain. There's two strips, if I read correctly, and one is the motor function, and one is the nerve endings. And what they did was they kind of mapped out the human body through this homunculus, through the brain. And they create a picture of the real proportions of a human if we look at the nerve endings. And it's a very strange little creature that comes up. And my learning partner is a doctor. I mentioned I was doing this topic, actually, and he said I had to look at it. So I looked it up, and you can see it afterwards if you want. You can just Google it. And it's basically a human with humongous hands, massive lips, and a very small back, because you have so many nerve endings in your lips that in terms of relationship to how it's represented in the map of your brain, this homunculus, this picture that comes out is that we are all lips. Okay? The amount of nerve endings, which I know as a parent, if you want to test the temperature of anything, actually, but even your kid's forehead, you usually use your lips, actually. I don't know if anyone does that. You've seen that? So you see the lips. So even a light brush sends a cascade of information to our brains, help us decide whether we want to continue and what might happen next. Intriguing, salacious. Lip contact involves 5 of our 12 cranial nerves as we engage all of our senses to learn more about a partner. Electric impulses bounce between the brain, lips, tongue, and skin, which can lead to feelings of being... And by the way, think about a kiss is actually... I mean, different types of kiss, obviously. But it's pretty gross. Right? I mean, usually I don't take saliva of anyone else and put it inside my mouth. It's just something I do, really. You know, I'm rather, but suddenly we're in I'm married, and I've got a wife, and all of a sudden we're like exchanging bodily fluids, you see, and no one's paying me. If you think about it, it's a rather gross thing. They say, actually, there is this whole field based saying that idea of fights off infections, build with your immune system, your immunity, all right, and you're building yourself up against, the bacteria by doing. But anyway, it's pretty gross. I mean, let's just admit it as it is. However, we're going to see a lot tonight. They all bounce off each other and actually gives you a natural high because of a potent cocktail of chemical messages involved. A passionate kiss, she says, acts like a drug, causing us to crave the other person thanks to a neurotransmitter called dopamine, which you all heard of. This is the same substance involved in taking illegal substances such as cocaine, right? Which is why the novelty of a new romance can feel so addictive. Dopamine is involved in sensations of reward, make us feel intense desire that can lead to feelings of euphoria, insomnia. Oh, I just can't sleep. Just keep thinking about him. That wears off. Loss of appetite. I just can't eat. All right? And she's like, oh. And it only goes, and there's only one actor in the great chemical ballet happening in our bodies, nicely put. And then There are physical changes. A kiss can cause our blood vessels to dilate, our pulse to quicken, cheeks to flush, pupils grow wide, they dilate, which is likely one reason many of us are apt to close our eyes when we kiss. Interesting. In other words, the body's response mirrors many of the same symptoms frequently associated with falling in love. Just the act of kissing. Evolutionary psychologists at the University of New York at Albany recently reported that 59% of men, by the way, I find the statistic unbelievable, 59% of men, 66% of women say they have ended a relationship because of a bad kiss. Now, bad breath, I kind of hear that actually, but how is, but that's just after I had like onion pizza, how is there such a seemingly simple exchange has the power to influence attraction dramatically? By the way, I just have to mention this. It's got nothing to do with the talk, but I was reading through the rest of this article. Ready for this? It is necessary, she continues, to include one important caveat. There seems to be a rise in the number of young people biting each other to express affection. This may be, this is the clincher, this is the punchline right now. This may be due, why? What? What? Vampires, absolutely. To vampires in Hollywood making the exchange look extremely good on the big screen. That's disgusting. Why are you chomping on each other? Why are you like biting? Okay, never mind. However, biting your loved one is the least appropriate way to show you care because injecting particularly dangerous viruses and bacteria directly in someone's bloodstream can be deadly. There you go. So, in case you had any worries or thoughts, being a vampire does actually possibly kill the other person. Okay? We'll leave that aside. Kissing statistics with Rabbi Lawrence. Who knew? A survey has found that 1 in 5 married couples only kiss once a week. And that is sad, actually. Yeah, that's very sad. And that when they do, it's for less than 5 seconds. It's like, okay. When you break it down by age groups, who does this research, by the way? Which university, like PhD student is lucky enough? It's no surprise that the younger couples are smooching the most. Those asked between the age of 18 and 24 say they kiss their partner on average 11 times a week. But when you look at the older kids, the study found that 5% of those over 45 lock lips more than 30 times a week. Okay? Remember that scene in Pretty Woman where Julia, this is the key part, where Julia Roberts explains that she doesn't kiss on the lips because it's too personal. In case you haven't seen the movie, she's a prostitute. That's interesting. I'm not joking. It's interesting. She's willing in the movie to sell her body for money, sell her dignity, by the way. It's very unconvincing, but she's willing to sell it all, but she won't kiss. It's true, right? Why is that? What is it about a kiss that, right? There's nothing more important than making your precious time personal. It's time to swap saliva like you're teenagers again. Okay, fine. Okay, so we'll jump on. So there's something about a kiss and what else we can learn from it that builds a connection in a very real way. Now, we live in a society where kissing is just done all the time, you know, or the French, they can't stop doing it, can they, right? There's both sides of the cheeks, right, and there's smooching. But in Jewish thought, kissing has a very major part to play in all relationships, whether it's parents and children, right, holy objects, and partners as well, okay? So here's something interesting I realized. There are 3 things the rabbis tell us, maybe 4, but 3 for sure, that we do with our mouths. What are 3 things we do with our mouths? So number 1, we eat. We eat with our mouths, okay? Number 2, we speak and we talk, right? And number 3, we kiss, okay? And we breathe as well. We'll leave that aside, but we'll go with eat, speak, and kiss. What? Can't be coincidence that all these 3 things revolve around the mouth. Okay? Unless, of course, my kids always tell me, but the Eskimos kiss with their nose. Fine, that's because it's too cold to get the lips out. Right? For the rest of it, however, we are using our lips to kiss. Right? The most sensitive part of our entire body. We come up together with another person, and we attach the most sensitive, nerve-filled part of our body with the other person's most nerve-filled and sensitive part of their body, and we press them together. Okay? That's in a, if you will, a physical kiss. And then when it comes to children, we will kiss, or Holy Bible will kiss, right? Whether their cheek, or their head, or their hands, or their feet when they're little babies, That's our way of showing we love. Okay? So eat, speak, kiss, and breathe. What do those 3 or 4 things have in common? Besides the fact they're all done with your mouth. Eat, speak, kiss, and breathe. Well, eating doesn't have to be. I mean, it becomes that, I guess, to some degree, but it doesn't have to be. You need them all to love. Oh, to live. You need them all to live. Okay. Well, a person could get it without speaking at all. So, I hear. I'm not going to go to that one right now, but I hear. So, more than, I would say different to what make us live, they're all about connection. Right? Connection. They connect things. You see, if you don't eat, you die. Your body and soul separate. So it connects your body to your soul. No eating, no life. Speaking helps us to, so that's connection to yourself. Speaking helps you connect to everyone else. How do we create communication? We humans speak. Actually, it's interesting if you look at the Torah itself, when it describes creation of mankind, of humanity, as opposed to animal kind, there is a very major difference. We eat, they eat. We sleep, they sleep. They have relationships, we have relations. So what exactly separates us from the animal kingdom? So one of the main things is speaking. And actually the rabbis and the Kabbalists call the human the medaber, the speaker. One of the words to describe humanity is that we have the ability to use our mouth to speak. And when we speak, we communicate, we build a connection with other people. That's the relationship between us and others. It's based upon good conversation that helps connect to other people. And a kiss does the same. A kiss has the power to bring 2 people who have no relationship, and suddenly a relationship is formed. There is a bond, there is a connection that was not there beforehand. So be careful who you kiss, how you kiss, and why you're kissing. It takes thought. It's not something you just throw around to anyone and everyone who wants a kiss. You're building something very, very deep. Let's do a little history of the kiss. Okay? History of the kiss. Are there instances we see kissing in Jewish thought? So first of all, we see Yitzchak, Isaac. Now you remember there was, he had 2 sons, Jacob and Esau, and he wanted to give Esau the blessing because he thought he was the oldest, but Jacob had bought the blessing at an earlier point, so he went to steal the blessing from, as it were, from his brother Esau, get there beforehand. And what does Isaac do? So Yitzchak brings him in. Isaac is pretty much blind at that point. And Jacob dresses up as his brother, puts on the various clothings and skins, so he feels like his brother. And his father Yitzchak says to him, "Come near me, I want to kiss you." Now, what's he doing at this point? He is blessing him. He wants to give him a blessing. Then why is he kissing him? If you want to bless him, why are you giving him a kiss? Because we see from very early on, there is a connection, first of all, parent to child and kissing. That's one thing we're seeing. But we're seeing that the connection of blessing another person, of having bracha. Bracha means a multiplication, something which increases between 2 people. The way that happens is through a kiss. Right? He's kissing his son. And by doing that, that's his methodology. By the way, he feeds his father first, by the way. They have food first of all. And then he kisses him, as if to say, this is the way we're going to build a father-son relationship. We're coming together, and we should be married. Hugged him, and then he kissed him. Now, we do the same thing. We bless our children on Friday nights. That is the Jewish tradition. Some people do it before the meal, some do it before Kiddush, some do it after Kiddush, different customs. But then most people at that point will kiss. Actually, I was with someone very recently where this is very, I don't know, it sounds unusual to you. He comes from a Sephardic family. He came to my house with his family a couple of weeks back, and all the kids have a custom to kiss their father's hand and their mother's hand, right, when they get blessings from them. See? Happens to be an old Jewish custom. You see it. What is that kiss doing? What is it demonstrating? It's connecting the blessing that they give. You want blessing? It's a holy thing. A kiss has kedusha. It has holiness. We're bringing families together through this thing called a kiss. And we go on. We know that Esav, and Yaakov got into a big fight over this. And Jacob had to flee for his life, had to live with his uncle Lavan, who was a terrible, treacherous individual. Many years later, after he's married with kids, and Esau's married with kids, they end up meeting up, and Jacob is ready to be killed. Ready to be killed. But these twin brothers, I mentioned this before, there's a certain connection between twins which other siblings don't have. They encounter each other along the way, and Jacob is ready for his whole life to be over. He thinks it's all ready, so he gets ready for war, and he prays, and he sends his brother Esau gifts, thinking they'll calm him down, which it did to some degree. He ends up seeing him, and the first thing they do is they fell on each other's shoulders, and they kissed each other. So that thing which they received from their father, they knew that connection was present as well, and they kissed each other. And that actually prevented, rather than a sword, he got a kiss instead. Okay? Later on, Joseph, if you remember, is sold as a young man. He goes down to Egypt, and he's living there for many, many years, and he's becoming viceroy of Egypt, and his brothers think he's dead, and his father think he's dead, and all the years later, the brothers end up coming down, and this big showdown between them, and eventually Joseph ends up seeing his brother Benjamin, and Benjamin had never really had a relationship with his brother at all, but they were both from the father Jacob and Rachel, and then when they saw each other, it got passed down again. And what did they do when they saw each other and they realized who it was? They kissed each other. They rekindled an entire relationship. Years of sorrow and difficulty and challenge came and was rekindled through one simple act. They kissed. So the Torah tells us. That's the language that is used. That physical connection brought these two people back from years and years of having no connection whatsoever. A very powerful, special, holy tool that had been passed down for many generations of kissing between family. Later on, we see the story of Samuel, and Samuel the prophet has to anoint King Saul, right, one of the first Jewish kings, and it says he took a flask of oil. What he used to do was he used to take him down to the spring outside Jerusalem, the Gihon spring. Those on trips with us, we actually go there many times. And he poured oil on his head that he would make a king, and then he kissed him. Right? He gives him a kiss, okay? And he says, you're now anointed. What's he doing? Same thing. He's now connecting him to himself, because he's the prophet, Samuel's the prophet, and King Saul becomes the king, and through this kiss, he's connected him to, because he's the one who's going to anoint, he's going to make him the king, and he's connecting him to the kingship and to the people as well. And then we have a very, very powerful relationship between King David and Jonathan. This is even later, and they too, it's almost like a secret message, like a code is being passed down through Jewish history for hundreds and hundreds of years. Jonathan and David, we know that King David, before he was king, right, he eventually took over from Jonathan's father, Saul. So Saul ends up losing the kingship, actually leaves his tribe, terrible thing, right? His tribe loses the kingship because of a mistake. What the mistake was is not for now, but King Saul was meant to do a certain mission. He didn't fulfill it completely. He was a very great man. He didn't do it. Eventually, rather than his son taking over, it goes over to David. And David and Jonathan were very, very, very close friends. And it says they love each other. There's a very strong bond between them. And then at some point, as soon as they'd gone, they bowed down. They realized that there was and they kissed each other. And David cried exceedingly. So this kiss, once again, is the connection. These are non-sexual kisses, but this is the connection between two incredibly important people at pivotal points in Jewish history. The kiss is the mechanism by which this happens as well. And finally, there's one small, tiny verse that's snuck away by King Solomon, okay, who's David's son. And over there, he says, this is a relationship, the Song of Songs, it's called Shir HaShirim. And over there, King Solomon is talking about the relationship between the Jewish people and God. And used the metaphor of a husband and wife. And intimacy is the metaphor that we, the Jewish people, have with God. And over there it says, let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth. Okay, so you're reading it through and you think, well, it's a guy and girl hanging out, having kisses. But they say it's actually the relationship of the Jewish people in the spiritual world is through a kiss. That is the mechanism by which we can connect spiritually to God by imagining as though, if you will, there is a kiss that is happening. There's one more kiss I want to mention. Okay? And then we'll try to bring it into relationships and how we're meant to act and what we do. Has anyone heard of the kiss of death? The kiss of death. What's the kiss of death? Like a lot of movies, like there's usually like a mafia character who's all ready to, like Godfather, right? If he kisses you, that's the kiss of death. Everyone know what it actually is? So it's not that at all. Kiss of death is actually meant to be an amazing thing. An amazing thing. What is it? So we see that Aaron, Moses' older brother, Torah tells us they journeyed from Kadesh. They went to a place called Mount Hor. Mount Hor. Hor HaHar is called a mountain. By the way, I did a trip I'll tell you an interesting story since I'm discussing Aaron. I never mentioned the story before. When I was like 21, 22, Jordan and Israel made a peace pact. Jordan and Israel. And they opened up Jordan for Jewish groups to go visit. This was a big thing and not happened before. Okay? It's under the old King Hussein. So I was a little crazy back then, and I wanted to go to Jordan. I wanted to see it. You know what I'm saying? I've been to Israel, so I did the Israel thing. I want to go to Jordan, So we did a sponsored hike through Jordan. And it was a proper organized thing. We were raising money. At that time, it was actually for Soviet Jewry, by the way. Just for interest, we were actually raising money for that. And we went, it was an organized trip using Jordanians. There must be about 30 of us sleeping in real Bedouin tents. Not things you have in Israel where they give you falafel and shawarma and you go home. We're actually sleeping in real Bedouin tents in Jordan. We went up the west coast. That means you could see inside of Israel. And we're traveling. And then I'll never forget this. At one part of the journey, I had to mention the story to you. At one part of the journey, we get to this empty field, like a massive, we're in a desert basically, the western part of Jordan. And we're going up. And there's a large clearing, and there's a mountain, like in the middle of nowhere. It's very unusual. And on top of the mountain, there's another kind of mountainous thing. It's like a mountain with a mountain on top. And I see, by the way, I have photographs to prove this. I see a Hasidic man on a donkey. A Hasidic dude on a donkey, traveling. I'm like, what is going on? We're in Jordan. And he starts to go up this mountain. So we said, we've got to follow this guy. So all of us, we had a guide. We said, we want to go to the top. And he told us what was on the top, but I won't tell you right now. So we're traveling, and we're following this Hasidic dude right there. So we're hiking with our backpacks and stuff, and he's just there, and it's full garb, black thing, black shoes, black thing, and he's going up on this donkey, right, up on his ass, up to the top of this mountain, right? And the ass donkey. And he's going up, and he gets to the top. And at the top of this mountain is a little building, like a little structure, and inside there's a guy sitting inside this room. It looks like a room, a small, tiny building, literally, like this area over here is a small, tiny room. And there's a guy sitting there, and inside there is like a slab. Now, we're in the middle of Jordan, and I don't know if Jews have even been to this place in who knows how long. So I said, where are we? It says, this is Aaron's tomb. And the mountain was called Jibal Harun. Jibal is a mountain in Arabic. Harun is Aaron. Actually, and Aaron was a Kohen. Remember that he was the first of the Kohanim, right? The Cohen priesthood actually goes right through Aaron and onwards. Okay, his brother Moses was a Levi, from the tribe of Levi, but Aaron, from certain actions, became the Kohen. He became the start of the kahuna, the priestly class that we have to this very, very day. And this is where he's buried. Actually, the word Harun, if anyone knows, there's actually people whose last name Haruni. Anyone heard such a thing? You see such people. They actually are Kohanim. It's actually, the Persians, they're actually Kohanim, and they come from this thing. So we're there, and so then he goes inside there, he starts praying. I'm like, wow. And it was actually, so there was a guy there the entire time. We had to kick our shoes off because it's a mosque. According to Jewish law, you're allowed to enter in. We went inside there, and I got to pray it. I mean, was it really Aaron's tomb? Well, it's interesting because the description in the Torah and the commentators I happen to have read actually said that Aaron's tomb was a mountain on a mountain. It was a large mountain in the middle of a large clearing with a little mountain on top, like an apple resting on a mountain. That's what it looked like. It's very freaky. Okay, so Aaron died, and Aaron's death is mentioned in great detail in the Torah. They journeyed from Kadesh and camped in Hor Har in Egypt, at the edge, because he never got into Israel, the edge of the land of Edom. Then Aaron the Kohen went up to Mount Hor at the word of, literally at the mouth of Hashem, and he died there in the 40th year after the children of Israel went from the land of Egypt. Remember, because the Jewish people left Egypt, and Moses and Aaron died in the 40th year because Moses and Aaron did not make it into the land of Israel. For different reasons, they didn't make it in. In the 5th month, on the 1st of the month, Aaron was 123 years old at his death on Mount Hor. So Rashi says, what is this thing of the mouth? What is this mouth business, the mouth of God? And Rashi, famous commentator of Shlomi Yitzchaki from Troy in France, most classic and important commentator, he says, we learn from here that he died with a kiss. Shikas Meis. He died with a kiss. What exactly is that? So the Talmud speaks about this. And the Talmud says there are actually 903 different types of death. 903 different ways. Sounds pretty gory, I apologize, but it's part of life. 903 ways that the soul can leave the body. And I don't think it doesn't list them, but it mentions the worst, and then it mentions the best. And the worst is called askara, some kind of throat, terrible disease. And they say askara is like, when the soul leaves the body, it's like pulling wool that is lodged in thorns. It's a very difficult separation, one to the other. Right? Not a very pleasant thing, and that's for terrible people. They have a very difficult time because they've spent their entire lives being so obsessed with the physical body that the soul leaving the body becomes a very difficult and painful separation. Okay, that's not everyone over here, heaven forbid, right? But that's what they talk about. What's the best one? The best one of death is called the kiss of death. And the Talmud says it's like pulling a hair out of milk. It just slips right out, boop, like that. And that's the best way. And how does a person achieve such a thing? That's for them when the whole physical world was just a means to an end, not a means of itself. Your soul and body weren't completely embedded together for your entire life. So when your time comes, you knew that spiritual world is awaiting, and it wasn't difficult to separate one from the other, just like a piece of hair being pulled out of milk. Now, why a hair? This is a metaphor, obviously, but why a hair, why milk is not for now. Absolutely, my Rosh Hashiva had a whole big thing on this, but I'm not going to discuss it right now. But it's interesting, though, that the hair coming out, poop, a very easy, slippery way for the soul to leave the body. It separates very nicely, very neatly, but it's called a kiss. Why? Because it's God himself taking the soul out. And the ultimate connection, as we said a moment ago, that can happen between a person and another person is this thing called a kiss. Now, God doesn't have lips as far as I know, but God does kiss us. As commentators say. And the best way for a person to die is through the kiss, as it was, this is a metaphor, but for the kiss to attach to the person's soul. And so the death happens in a very calm and peaceful, and I don't even say it this way, but pleasant way, that it's just a natural progression, okay, that a person goes through, and the soul just leaves the body. I mentioned this whole thing just to point out that the word kiss is used.